Hi and welcome to my playhouse. And today I'm in the data center, but I'm gonna be moving out of here just in a little bit because we're gonna be talking about data center cooling. I did a video, well, it's probably a couple of weeks ago when you see this, but I did a video on trying to water cool the air intake of my data center, and I got a lot of comments on that, and some of them was kind of the same. Why don't you just install an AC in your data center? And I would like to try to explain that. So if you come with me outside, I'll try to explain that. I made a drawing. Okay, we have moved outside because the weather is nice and the birds are up. I have drawn up two data centers and I've called this cooling data centers. So very nice. The first one I've called air replacement, and the second one I've called air cooling AC. So this one is the one with the AC on it. There are some benefits and there are some downsides to these setups. So air replacement works that you take in cold air from the outside, filter it. Well, you pump it with a motor and you filter it, make sure that you don't get a lot of dust inside. You pump that in and you put it through your servers. Servers normally take in cold air in the front, and they will heat up the air with the processor and the RAM and all the electronics in there, and they will deliver the hot air on the back of the servers. So I have drawn up 4 racks here with a lot of servers in them, and you close off the areas so that you, in your data center, you get a cold zone and you have a hot zone. So on the front of the racks you have the cold zone, on the back of the racks you have your hot zone. Then on the hot zone you have another fan and you just blow that air out into the free or whatever, get rid of it. This is very much efficient, just taking in new colder air and getting rid of the hot air. There are definitely some instances where this is not possible. If the outside temperature here is higher than what the servers can handle, well, it's not a good option at all. Equipment nowadays are going towards this solution because back in the days your servers would like 30 degrees C. That would be the recommended temperature. They would be complaining at about 40 degrees, or more or less almost shutting down at 40 degrees C. But nowadays they're moving towards that you can put in 45 degrees C is getting to be normal, and the server will still keep, well, let's not call it cool, but it will still run. So the max has gone up and it has become more normal to run it at that high temperature. So if the temperature outside is over whatever temperature that your servers or switches or whatever equipment you have in your data center, this option will not work for you. And it's not as if you can just buy all your servers with the good temperature. If you just have one stupid switch that will only operate at 30 degrees, well, you're in trouble. Also, you will have the issue with your air humidity. It's a bit harder to control that. If the air outside is very humid, it can be a problem to remove that in the filters and just blow that in. But well, it is really something that you can control and change. The air out, get rid of it. Don't need to do anything with it. Remove it. Maybe just make sure that nothing can go back into the system. And make sure that the server racks has this cold side and hot side, because that's way more efficient than mixing up the air. So on the air conditioning side, we have an air conditioner over here, and well, there are multiple ways of doing this. I have just drawn up one. They are about the same. In the middle we have our racks. I have kind of tried to draw 4 racks. I have again closed off with the green stuff here, so there should be a cold side over here in front of the servers and a hot side on the back of the servers. This is way more efficient than mixing up the air in any circumstances. You don't want to do that. If you do that, you're gonna be wasting energy. That's just a fact, and it doesn't matter if it's the one setup or the other setup. So you have a chiller over here in the corner, and how that works, the server blows in the cold air from the front. That air becomes hot. This chiller I've drawn up is designed to take in the hot air from the top and bring it down through the chiller, and there will be some cooling radiators in here that will cool the air down, and those radiators work with cold fluids that it gets from an outdoor cooling unit. So the air will be cooled down in those radiators and blown out the bottom of the chiller. The cold air will then under the floor go over and rise on the other side, on the cold side of the racks. So cold air will come in here, sip up through the floor, and be pulled through the racks again and heated up. And this will continue. The outside unit works, there are two models that I'm aware of. There is the free cooling system and there is a compressor cooling system. When it's free cooling, it means that it doesn't use the compressor. So if the weather outside is very cold, it's enough to just take the hot water or fluids coming out, just put them through some big radiators, blow some cold air through them and send it back in, and the fluids will have been cooled enough. If the outside weather is too hot to do that, well, the compressor will kick in, and the compressor works by compressing some kind of gas. When you do that, the gas will heat up the compressor a lot because it works on that. But when you decreases the pressure of the gas again, it will need a lot of heat to do that, and it will take that heat from the surroundings. And you make sure in this unit that the surroundings is the fluid that you want to go back in. So you have the compressor that compresses gas, then you decreases the pressure of the gas, and that process cools down the fluids that goes back in. The big advantage of this system is that you're in control. It doesn't matter if it's 10 degrees outside or if it's 100 degrees outside. This unit will be able to cool the data center. If it becomes very hot outside, it has more problems to dissipate the heat, so the compressor will run a lot more. Not all units have this free cooling system built in. Older systems will not have that, and definitely systems that you buy for home use will not have that. But big data center AC units will have this free cooling option. And if you have equipment in your data center that can go up to high temperatures, the free cooling in the air condition will work more of the time and be more efficient that way. But it does not go up as high as if you just replace the air. There are quite a difference in efficiencies in these two systems. It's so much easier to just push the heat out of the way than to cool it again. So let's look at some numbers. So my little drawn up data center here, 4 racks, is using 10,000 watts. A really good AC unit will be able to cool 10,000 watts with about 2,000 watts. That's a COP, which you measure a cooling of 5, which means that for every watt that you put into the AC, well, it will cool 5 watts. So, and not as good a cooling unit for a data center would be able to supply 3 watts of cooling for every watt put into it. So somewhere between 1/3 and 1/5 of the power. So 1/3 would be 3,333 watts. And if you look at the 1 to 5, that would be 2,000 watts that would be needed to cool 10,000 watts of electronics. This is when the compressor is running. If you have a free cooling solution, when the compressor is not running, it will be using a lot less. That's why you want a free cooling system, and why it's very nice when the temperature outside is not too high. On the air replacement side of things, that's a lot more efficient. If we have a really bad setup to dissipate 10,000 watts, we would use 1,000 watts to blow air in and blow air out. That would be a 500 watt fan blowing air in and a 500 watt fan blowing air out. That would be 1 to 10. If we have a more efficient system, I'm sure that we could go 1 to 20. So somewhere between 1,000 watts and 500 watts. So a lot less power to just blow the air out of the data center and get some fresh air in. So looking at these numbers, it's pretty easy to see that it's pretty much 4 times more efficient to just replace the air instead of cooling it. Just like you don't see a snowplow with a flamethrower on top of it, because it's way cheaper to just push the snow out of the way than to melt it. And then we have another cameo. Go away. But to use this system, you of course need to be somewhere where the outdoor temperature of the air does not go over the maximum allowed temperature to go through the servers to cool them down and get rid of that. So I live here in Denmark, and we rarely get over 30 degrees outside. We have a temperature span of probably something like -15 degrees to about 35 degrees, and that's C. And if we have the spectra here, the full spectra of what we normally see, everything above this would probably be maybe just one night every year or one day every year. This one is not very common. This one is a little bit more common. We can see -20 degrees, but you know, but these temperatures in each end would be so rare. 99 point something % of the time we would be good. We would have something like -5 to 20 C. That would be 99% of the time that we will be within this span, which would be perfect for this. So I don't really need air condition. I can live with this just fine.
Okay, so let's see this. In my last video there was some confusion about my data center being in the basement. That's not true. My data center is right there. And over here on the side of it is the air intake, and this is the shadow side of the house. And I have my air intake right there. So right now I have the Leaning Tower of Peter on it, and that's if I remove that, it brings in more air, so there is too much air resistance in this build-up, but I still have it on there. It's enough to keep it somewhat cool in there. There are ways to improve on this. I have like this motor that I'm using here has a 100 millimeter throughput. These pipes are 110 millimeters. I have made sure that I have a 160 millimeter input into my data center, so I can improve on this. I can make this bigger, so that would be all good. So yeah, that goes through the wall. Let's see where it comes in. So into the data center, all the servers are here. Down here on the floor is my intake, and it blows the cold air in. it hits this box and turns over and blows up in front of the servers. I'm sure there are good ways to improve on that as well. So out here in front of the servers are the cold zone, and I have kind of made this a cold zone by putting on some foam on top of the servers. I have shut it off. There's foam up there that makes sure that the cold zone and the hot zone does not mix up. I've just made a hole in it over here so we can go around the back, but I've made this door here with foam or some rubbery thing. So let's go in here and see. In here is another fan that takes the hot air from the ceiling of the data center and blows it out that away. So air intake to take the hot air out. That's this pipe going, this is the rack. So this pipe is going out and it goes through the wall. I have a silencer on here and the pipe goes this way, and I blow the hot air into the house. This is not really good for summer because it's way too hot already, but in winter I don't want to not use this heat. So sometimes in summer I just put a hose on here and put it out through the window to get rid of it again. But yeah, I can improve on this as well. These pipes are 110 millimeters. I can improve on that as well. That would be room for improvement there, surely. So if we reduce this to my numbers, on that hot summer day when I did the video on trying to water cool my data center, I have been around and I checked. I was using 145 watts on this fan and on this fan, and approximately 5 to 10 watts including in this for pumping up the water from the well. So I could really do this with about 135 watts, blowing air in and taking air out. I only need to do this at summer when it's really hot. Otherwise, this fan is often not in use. I only blow the hot air out, and the data center, well, the door is a shitty old door, so it will drag in some normally temperatured air from the house. It's not good to go down into the minus degrees and put that through the server. So if I could get some air that is 10 degrees Celsius, that would be fine. So when the temperature drops outside, I can turn off this fan and I don't need to pull in any cold air from the outside. I can pull in colder air from the house, and this fan is pretty much on all the time to get rid of the hot air. I want that to be gone. So 145 watts. I was looking at this if I was gonna go and get a air conditioning system for that day. I would have needed a air conditioner and AC that would be able to cool about 8,000 BTUs. There, I would need one of those. Prices vary quite a bit on those. 8,000 BTUs is about 2,400 watts. It's not a whole lot, but prices on these units varies quite a lot. I could see that in the United States, if I went to Home Depot or something like that, I would be able to get an aircon like this for $199. That's not the price in Denmark, I can tell you that much. If I wanted a air conditioning unit like that here, I would have to multiply that by something like 5 to 10 times to get that. And you need to get that installed. If it's not, we don't have Windows units. We have transportable units. We don't have window units. I don't know why we don't have them. So if I wanted to have that installed by a cooling technician, that would be in the 10 times. If I could get a transportable one,
that would be about 5 times. Way more expensive here, something like $1,000 to $2,000, and closer to $2,000 than $1,000 for sure. And it would use 4 times as much power to cool my data center. So that's why I don't have an AC, and that's why I'm not actually planning on getting an AC, is because it's not a very good option for me. I have this very nice outside temperature that never comes. I haven't seen this in years. We were very close that day when I made that video on the air cooling data center, but we weren't there. The server was complaining, and what I saw was that the water cooling, what I was trying to do was to lower the temperature of the air coming in. That worked, but reducing the airflow, that did actually work. I did reduce the temperature of the air coming in, but the servers really just wanted more air of the outside temperature. So I saw a better performance just putting in more air instead of cooling it down. So I was perfectly able to cool the data center. I would just have liked to see this work. I did kind of say that I was gonna play around with it, and that's exactly what I'm doing. I don't need the water cooling, but it would be cool to have a water cooling system. Okay, so that's why I don't have a AC unit and why I'm not planning to get one. But in large data centers, you usually have an AC unit to make sure that you can control your environment in your data center better, for sure. Some of the really big data centers are experimenting with the really high temperatures going in. 95 degrees, I've seen a data center use that, and that makes the data center very power efficient. We're probably going in that direction. That makes the hot coming out of the data center really warm, so no reason to cool that, just get rid of it. Just pull in some new air from the outside, and if you need to cool that, you might want to look into moving your data center to somewhere else where the temperature is lower. So thank you very much for watching my videos. Do subscribe to my channel so that you can see me again, and have a really nice day. Bye bye.